any order? I go there, maybe mix it, no?
Yeah.
Gender balance.
Yeah. That's okay. We cannot see.
No.
Yeah, I think it's working.
Should we sit down?
I think it's working. Good afternoon, everybody. Maybe we can start the session. So good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I would like to have the pleasure to introduce our panelists in this afternoon session on the EIT as an instrument driving European innovation. So first of all, Martin Kern, he's the director of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology based in Budapest. Thank you very much. Then Maria Tsavakidis, she's the CEO of one of the most new knowledge and innovation communities that we have on urban mobility. And she has experience from many years working in Siemens. She was also a researcher, and now she's the CEO of this very important new knowledge and innovation community. And then I would like to introduce Tiago Mendes. He's one of the best examples that we have of someone who has gone through the experience of the EIT in EIT InnoEnergy, this one of the first knowledge and innovation communities, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. He's been through the EIT InnoEnergy and is now part of it as well. So we will also be asking him about his experience from the past. So today what I would like to do, I will have a short introduction about what the EIT is about for those of you who might not know about it, although I suppose that if you're here it's because you have heard about the EIT. I will give a short introduction, but then afterwards I would like really to have this as interactive as possible so that whenever you want to have ask questions, please or say something, give your opinions, please feel free to do so. So just as a little sort of entrance into the discussion today, most of you would know that the EIT was started 11 years ago already, in 2008, and its idea was to contribute to economic growth and competitiveness by reinforcing the innovation capacity of the member states in the European Union. And the way it was doing it was by pioneering something which was not common at that stage, and that was by working through the knowledge triangle, basically bringing together research, innovation, and education. So they were doing this through these knowledge and innovation communities, which were tackling societal challenges. Up to now, there are 8 KICs, and they cover a wide spectrum of areas, going from energy to health, digital, climate, urban mobility, among others. And this idea of the knowledge triangle integration, it's a way of coordinating the process where you have all the players of research, education, and innovation working together and ensuring also that the innovators of the next generations are also going to be prepared for these new challenges. For this purpose, of course, the players are SMEs, higher education institutions, research institutions, public bodies, and of course as well NGOs and regional authorities. So we have a very wide spectrum of stakeholders playing a role here. Each of the knowledge and innovation communities delivers portfolio of activities in each of the nodes of this triangle, in support to innovation, in education, and business creation. And there I will ask afterwards maybe Martin to give us a few more details of what has been achieved after all these 11 years. And one part that the EIT is playing a very important role is in what would be place-based innovation. So it's playing a key role in what is regional innovation because of the structure of how it works. It works through this, what is called co-location centers, which are geographical hubs where they are integrating this knowledge triangle. Each of the KICs have different co-location centers, and this way they ensure that they are able to interact with all the actors also at regional level. And more recently, the EIT set up this regional innovation scheme, which is a way of outreach to these other regions or areas where the co-location centers are not working directly, but to ensure that we have a better integration of all the regional actors. And then maybe there Martin can give a bit of information on this sense. So after this more than a decade of the EIT being established, of course, we are not saying that this has been an easy path. It's been bumpy. Obviously, when you start innovating and you start doing something, you run risks. And it's been difficult periods, but at the end of this, we are seeing that the model itself is working. This is something which has been well supported by all the different evaluations that has been done of the scheme itself, and we are seeing that we are helping through the EIT to reshape certain areas, economic sectors, and ensuring that innovation is happening and creating opportunities. Now, for us, it's very important in this process, looking to the future, to have a way of dealing with collaboration, co-design, and co-creation across all the disciplines. And that's why it's important for us today to hear from you, your views, your questions, all the ways that we can help us to improve and to move forward in the years to come. Partially on the basis of what we have heard already up to now, we have submitted recently, some of you might know, we have recently submitted a proposal from the Commission on the new EIT strategy for the next MFF as part of Horizon Europe. And within the key novelties, of course, there's continuity of those things that we've seen that they are working, but also there are some novelties or some strengthening of certain areas, which are, for example, on the side of education, reinforcing the education to ensure that we have entrepreneurship education and innovative education in the higher education. We will reinforce the regional innovation scheme. And of course, in this new stage of the new MFF, very important to focus on the synergies that need to be created within Horizon Europe, for example, with the EIC and with other programs of the EU. So without much further ado, I think with this I give you a broad idea of what the EIT has been about. I would like to ask Martin to give us a little bit of a flavor, a summary of what these 10 years have been and what have been the achievements that you have found in this time.
Okay, first of all, good afternoon, and thanks to Begonia for a really great introduction about the EIT, and thanks to all of you for being interested in the EIT, and I hope we can shed some light into what we've been up to in the last 10 years, and also, of course, what lies ahead for the EIT. I can see you very well, so my apologies. If later we have questions, it's
yes,
good
we'll have to.
if you give me a sign. So what we've been up to in the last 10 years. I mean, EIT started from relatively experimental and humble beginnings 10 years ago when there were 78 partners organized around 3 knowledge and innovation communities: EIT Climate Kick, InnoEnergy, and Digital. In the background was the ambition and the mandate given to the EIT that Europe needs to be better in producing innovation out of the great research, great science that we have, and that's not happening enough because of too much fragmentation. Because within countries, but even more so at European level, there are too many barriers that prevent universities, research organizations, businesses to get together and to bring their ideas together and really turn them into concrete solutions and innovations, and not just any innovation, but innovations that help us to tackle the big societal challenges that clearly need a long-term cooperation. So climate change, energy, and others really need an approach that is different from a short-term approach from individual projects. That's against that background, the EIT was set up. and we set up those first 3 knowledge innovation communities, each of them essentially doing 4 blocks of activities. First block of activities was to create the basis for more entrepreneurship. And that means, of course, working in particular with universities, but also other education providers to develop entrepreneurship skills, but also more creativity for students. And we'll probably later hear from Thiago directly what is the type of experience that means, and create more entrepreneurs across Europe that can be the innovators of tomorrow. So each of the innovation communities have a set of activities making that happen. Second block or second set of activities for each of them is to create more startups. So to pick up the great ideas that exist, certainly around Europe, not just in research, but also in individuals, and help those ideas to turn into a concrete business, to make a business plan, business case, to give the right training, to turn ideas into early stage companies, and then of course to help those companies to grow, to become successful, because that's the second big hurdle, not just to start it, but actually to maintain it and then to scale it up and grow. So each kick has a set of business creation, acceleration activities that make that happen in their particular area, societal challenge. Third block of activities is concrete innovation projects, where the universities, the research organization, businesses work on a concrete product that can range from autonomous shuttles to health products that prolong the lifespan, to area of digital mining in the field of raw materials. So whatever is needed in a given area to overcome the societal challenge and help to its contribution, there are dedicated innovation projects that work on products to bring them to the market and solve the issues and help citizens to have results. And then the fourth block, and maybe that's not the most important but often overlooked one, is to actually develop a coherent ecosystem that is all over Europe. So we have co-locations to be grounded physically in certain cities in Europe, and also interconnect these different centers so that an innovator from Scotland can find a partner in Poland that works in the same area and get together seamlessly. Innovators can find industry partners to have potential clients for their products, or as investors, there is community of venture capitalists, business angels that work with each innovation communities. So each innovation community has built this ecosystem and had these 3 strands of different activities. Now, if we fast forward the 10 years, that community has grown to 8 knowledge and innovation communities. It has succeeded to bring out over 800 concrete products and services, supported over 2,000 startups in their early stage to be created or to grow, and actually has now over 1,300 organizations working together, certainly universities, research business, but also cities, NGOs, and other partners that can help to overcome the societal challenge. So it's now Europe's largest innovation communities, and some of those startups have also been highly successful. Actually, from our latest figures, 1.5 billion euros of investments, external investments, so not money of the EIT, were attracted by the startups that EIT has supported. And just this summer, we actually have one really big success story that has come out of the EIT. To give one example, this is the company Northvolt from Sweden, which 2.5 years ago just had some plans, nice ideas on a piece of paper of building a gigafactory for batteries. And in fact, they want to build Europe's biggest factory with the greenest batteries in the world, which are possible with today's technology. And by now they have succeeded to attract over 1 billion euros of investment, including from the European Investment Bank, 350 million, 800 million from Volkswagen, and actually are building the first factory in Sweden and probably a second one in Germany soon. So within 2.5 years, they've gone from the idea to implementation. And EIT, in this case EIT InnoEnergy, has helped them at an early stage with support, with connecting them to their ecosystem, and also financial support, actually from their own money that they collected as revenues, and now going forward to build actually what is a unicorn coming out of European Union support, because not just the EIT, but of course also others have contributed to that success. So it's now paying off, it's working, and we're quite happy that that has been recognized by the European Commission in the evaluation that was done, and now also in the proposal for the new program. And if you want, I can also say a few words about the regional innovation scheme, or maybe we keep it for later. So one of the aspects that we have introduced in 2014, in particular also a request from the European Parliament, is not just to have those activities that I describe, but to make sure that there's also a very strong dissemination, and that the EIT really is an instrument that is all over Europe, and not just in hotspots where some innovation communities more naturally have their activities. And with this regional innovation scheme, we have succeeded to create over 40 hubs all across Europe, where in particular in Central Eastern Europe, interested stakeholders, again universities, businesses, researchers, can connect to the EIT, can either participate in the activities themselves. So we have then also more and more product services startups from these countries, or get support to build capacity, because often there is still lower innovation capacity, and they can learn from how things are being done elsewhere. So we have an inbuilt dissemination scheme like that. And by now there is also means there's a geographical coverage of the EIT all across Europe, which of course strengthens the ecosystem as a whole, because connections can be made even more widely. Most recently, we even expanding that outside Europe. So there is also an EIT office in Silicon Valley, and we'll have plans to do the same in Israel and China. We also strengthen the links with the financial institutions, EIB, EIF, all for the sake of having the strongest possible innovation ecosystem where we can accelerate the innovation process. So that's where we are today. Sorry to be a bit long.
No, it was. I think that you summarized very well 11 years of existence. I think that it was quite succinct. But I wonder if maybe there are any questions now coming from the audience, clarifications of the system itself or how it works. If there's any question now coming? No? Okay. But then if that's the case, then I would take advantage of what you have been saying now on the regional, and I will ask you a question regarding the local innovation ecosystems and how your KIC, your Knowledge Innovation Committee, will work. But before I do explain this, let the audience know a little bit about what your vision is for this knowledge and innovation community on urban mobility, and how do you see that it links to all the other existing KICs, and what's your vision for that?
Yes, thank you, Begonia. Maybe before I do that, I would like to know who has actually known EIT before coming to this session here. Wow. Okay.
So everyone knows.
So just to know, where to start with when explaining. So we are, as Begonia mentioned already, we are the new kid on the block. The EIT Urban Mobility was designated last year in December. So we are still in our startup year, ramping up the processes, the structures, and our vision. And that was also how probably we convince you to give us the opportunity to work on that vision, is to accelerate the transition towards sustainable mobility for livable urban spaces. So create cities that improve the quality of life of people, that make the cities in Europe more competitive, and will also foster the move towards zero-emission mobility. So that's in the core of our mission. And that said, I mean, already explains why the regional aspect is so important, or the local aspect, because it's all about really creating local impact on the city level. So if 7 years from now we will have success stories only saying we have created that number of startups, and there's a company that has produced some product or service and that created revenue. That will not be the success story that will tell us that we have been successful. No, we want to see really that cities change, that citizens benefit from what we do. So this means that cities and the citizens are really in the core of what we do. So it's totally local, but on the other hand, of course, we want to scale that to Europe. Yeah, so we have both starting at the local level, creating impact there, but then also transferring what we learn in one city to other cities, also cities that are not part of our network. So reaching out to countries with a lower level of innovation still, but also reaching out to cities beyond Europe. So how do we do that? We have the cities as co-partners in our community. So we have 49 partners right now. So that is the initial partnership. And out of those 49, 13 are cities. And we have 5 co-location centers all over Europe. So we try really to cover the whole of Europe. We have one in Copenhagen, in Prague, in Munich, in Barcelona, and Helmond. Probably not all of you know Helmond. It's a small city near Eindhoven, but that also shows the wide range of cities. So really from a city with 100,000 citizens, Helmond, to Istanbul, which also is a core partner of ours. So a mega city in Europe. And so there's different types of cities in Europe, and all of them have also different needs. Yeah, you cannot have a one-fit-all solution. But by having many cities, and we really have a forum for our cities called the City Club, where also cities that are not core partners, not paying membership fees, can become a partner and tap into the knowledge and the experience of other cities. And by this, really accelerate their development. So it's about creating the local ecosystems. So maybe adding on what Martin said. So it's not one urban mobility ecosystem, but it's the local ecosystems, and we foster that by bringing together the different players in the ecosystem. So the knowledge triangle, or we call it the extended knowledge triangle, because we don't only have industry, research and innovation and academia, but we also bring the cities to the table, the policymakers to the table. So that's why it's extended. And with cities, of course, we also bring in the citizen into the game, because the cities have the access to citizens, and we do citizen engagement. Oh, that's our plan. I mean, I still talk a lot about our ambition and vision, but this is also in the core to engage citizens in our project. Behavioral change is key to really make the transition towards sustainable mobility. So it's not innovation in urban mobility, and I have done research in the 5th framework program 22 years ago. And back then it was a lot about technology, but it's not about technology anymore. The technologies are there. We see fantastic opportunities, solutions out there. But why is it not happening? Why are people still using what they have used 10 years ago? Why are they still using their normal cars while they could use car sharing? It's because the framework conditions allow them to do that, or sometimes even give them incentives to do so. And it's because of they are used to it. Yeah, and I am used to it. So, and to change behaviors takes a lot of effort, education, awareness creation. And this is what's also innovation. And this is what EIT, and specifically now talking about urban mobility, is in our mission. So
I think that's a very good point you were making about how the concept of innovation has changed as well. It goes beyond just the pure technology. It's behavioral change, and it's also including being inclusive as well. And I wanted to also take the opportunity to give a bit of an idea of how the different knowledge and innovation communities can interact as well. Maybe I ask you and Martin together on this. How do you see that you have linkages to other knowledge and innovation communities, which seem very obvious, but and how do you expect to work on this?
Yes,
you can add on the cross-cake. Yeah.
Maybe I start.
Yeah,
So foremost, we have the climate innovation community. So there is a very direct link, and so we will start collaborating next year already in a so-called cross-kick activity on resilient cities. So urban mobility being a main contributor to negative effects on climate. So we are one part of the solution there. So with digital, of course, because digital technologies are also in the heart of many of our solutions. For instance, mobility as a service. So not possible without digital technologies. Energy, of course. So speaking about electromobility. So there is very direct connections that we are leveraging by doing cross collaborative projects.
Very good.
If I can add to that, I think something we recognized along those 10 years that some of the biggest innovation potential is actually between the different challenges and bringing actors together from different dimensions. The digital with the health, or the mobility with the climate, with the energy, and like that you can actually unleash new innovation potential that may not happen if the same actors keep working together. So you can sort of disrupt the thinking. So what we did in EIT is create incentives for that to happen, such as putting aside some of the funding for this cross-kick collaboration. And that will also put us in a good position to participate, what is discussed a few rooms from here, the new concept of missions. Because an EIT community, meaning several kicks together, can participate to contribute to some of those missions that will be set. So for that, I think is very, very high potential of synergies. It also allows someone to set a challenge to the EIT. For example, we've seen this from Slovenia. The country said, we want to update all our strategies to bring in circular economy thinking, sustainability, all across our different sectors. And then they have asked EIT community to help, and EIT Climate Kick and EIT Raw Materials got together to correspond to that challenge, and now helping the Slovenian government to do that. So that's a relatively novel element, but something with enormous potential for EIT.
Yeah, that's very clear. Thank you, Martin. I will now ask Tiago. I mean, can you give us a view of your experience, of the story of you through the EIT Kick Energy? How did it help you in your career, and what has been your experience through it?
Okay, so
tell us your story, basically.
I'll try to perhaps connect with some of the things that were said, and what struck me the most from especially from your beginning was this idea of fragmentation, because fragmentation, if you think about it, it really creates all the problems that we have, and fragmentation from ourselves, in terms of health or psychological issues or so on. Fragmentation from each other that creates poverty and wars, and we also have a fragmentation from nature, which now we need to deal with sustainability, which is us getting closer again to the value of our environments, our natural environments, our natural resources. And I think that this pull of fixing these fragmentations were somehow what made me join an EIT education program. I had a technical background. I was studying engineering, and I got very interested in the energy side of innovation, because it's one of the major problems, if not the main contributor for climate change. And there was this sense of a different approach to it, which really attracted me. So I was lucky enough to be accepted already, let's say 6 years ago, to one of these double master programs. And what provided me was a totally different way of looking at things, which actually took me away from the technical field, because it became very apparent to me that, you know, this sense of belonging, this sense of connection, this sense of awareness of why am I doing things, why are people doing things, how can we actually understand together what's really important to do and to change beyond our own personal interests, and putting all the different expertise and all the different ideas towards something that can actually be beneficial on many sides was a lot more important than just developing a little piece of technology. And I think that's the case for a lot of my generation and a lot of the people that I know from these education programs in EIT, that we realized, okay, wait a minute, I can dedicate my talents and my time to try to come up with the new technology, which will be part of the transition, which is wonderful, and it's still not enough, because technology itself doesn't provide any value. It's about how it's used, how decisions are made to bring that forward, and who is bringing that forward, and what is it combined with? What kind of partnerships are we dealing? How are we behaving? Because ultimately, all things are done by people. And I think we all understood this, that first we had to have a dialogue about, you know, what is our place in all of this, and how we can actually do something meaningful. And I think a very good example is these cross-kick conversations. You know, next month I'm part of organizing an event called the Eit Alumni Connect, for example, and we chose the topic of the SDG 11, so all about sustainable cities and communities, because like you were saying as well, it's a very interesting container to explore all these different things. So how the role of food goes into the waste, how the mobility connects with the digital infrastructure and with the energy needs and with the clean air, and just with the quality of life of people. So these conversations bring to all these people that have little expertise a much bigger picture, and they're much better equipped to make good decisions and to establish connections. For example, we in energy in Europe, giving the example of Northvolt, for example, like we say, okay, we want to be competitive in the global market, and we understand that storage is perhaps the most challenging part of renewable energies. So let's build a gigafactory, and let's try to be competitive on batteries. But then on the other side, we have the raw materials people saying, you know, wait, don't build more batteries, because maybe it will be part of solving the climate change issue, but then we have a raw material crisis that we don't have any more things to use. And EIT provides indeed an ecosystem where it brings these people together that otherwise would try to solve the things in their own way, separate and sometimes contradictory, but now they have an ecosystem where they can share ideas and find more holistic approaches.
That's a very good point about this ecosystem of ecosystems as well. It's very good, and the interactions between them. what, in your view, would be, from your experience, the strengths of these education programs that you have seen and that you're now continuing through your role in energy? Because from what you're saying, is something is just goes beyond just courses. It's something else that you're getting out of this. What is, in your view, the strongest points of these education programs?
Well, I think compared to
and one more question, if you think that it can be improved, and how? I'm sure you have some views.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think it's if you compare it to traditional education, right? You go to university and you get your technical courses, and you gain a lot of knowledge, right? But you don't necessarily gain a lot of wide awareness of things. So you funnel your attention more and more as you go, which can be very beneficial for certain specific things. Of course, I have nothing against it. I think what an education in EIT provides is indeed, because not only you get to go to one of the best universities in Europe and gain all the technical knowledge to know what you're talking about and to be able to contribute on a technical level, but then you also have a whole parallel education, for example, on entrepreneurship, on creativity, on innovation, on group dynamics, for example, or personal development, understanding who you are and how you can contribute. And also, sometimes we go to business schools, and we learn more about the business development, the market side, everything that goes into bringing one piece of technology into reality, and into a reality that actually can create social and financial benefit. So you get a much broader perspective than a traditional education. And I think not only that, from what I've seen in people that created their own startups, friends of mine, people that I know, or people that entered more traditional organizations like consultancy or utilities or whatever, is their capacity to contribute is very much different from if you have just a technical background, right? Because you studied the technology, but then you studied the market as well, and you met the business people, and you know their language, you know the culture, and you also understand how certain things influence on a more holistic level. And you get to meet people from other KICs, so you know what you're doing and what your industry is doing is affecting other industries as well. So not only you're more equipped to perhaps have a more future-oriented vision, but also you learn how to connect with people that are not just from your small bubble. So you can have these conversations and you can share knowledge and you can have a much more influence, and you actually learn to believe that you belong to these places, not just, oh, I'm an engineer, or oh, I'm a business developer and I should be doing this. No, you actually start believing that, wait a minute, I don't need to be confined with these things, and a lot of the challenges are so complex that they demand people to not be confined in these small boxes.
Thank you, Tiago. That was very, very good way, very different way to explain what education programs are about. I don't know if at this point there are any questions from the audience. I'm sorry I cannot see so well. But I was wondering as well, from all of you, following from what Maria said earlier on, many of you had heard about the EIT, but I just wonder how many of you had heard about the EIT like this? Was this what has been said here? Is it what you knew about the EIT, or what kind of concepts did you have? I just wonder, has it changed what we're speaking about now? Any of your views? Can you just put your hands up if it's changed your views at all? Okay. Okay, so then, since you put up your hand, can I ask one of you, how has it changed your views? Maybe I ask you. I'm going to ask for victims now. So there I had 3 hands coming up, so maybe... It's on? Yeah?
No. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Actually, what the lady from Urban Mobility just said is actually what strikes me most, because I know EIT because of the startups But I really think that startups is not the only thing. So it's really about, at the end, citizens who really benefit from these innovations. So actually, is the EIT also considering to put it in the other kicks? We have like the citizen engagement in its
Yes.
results.
So
Yes.
I know
Yes.
definitely because I discussed with Kirsten, who's the CEO of Climate Kick. They are very much thinking in this direction to really take innovation challenge driven, and the challenges come from society and come from the citizens. And they are also doing a lot in citizen engagement already, and I guess the others are too. I'm not too familiar with their programs on citizen engagement, but I definitely know that Climate Kick is doing a lot in this respect.
If I can complement, I think it's a general understanding that has evolved how innovation works in the EIT community, but probably beyond that. That is not just about getting one startup ready or one technology more ready and put to the market, as you always also mentioned. But there's an important timing factor attached to it. It's really the right moment when that happens and when there is a need for it. And for that, you do need, of course, a more holistic approach. So you need to be in touch with the whole sector, with all the stakeholders, and we see when is that innovation actually timely to make a difference on your societal challenge. And if you do not have the end users there, the citizens, the cities, the industry, others that are involved, then that simply doesn't work. And then many things are too early, too late, or just not appropriate. That's, I think, the value of this community, which now have grown to 1,300 partners, that you can get all the relevant stakeholders together. So it's certainly the new kick, urban mobility, climate kick, but also the other kicks who more and more look at that dimension of the innovation process. So I would see it as a general trend and not just looking at startups in isolation. Yeah.
So maybe since I have more people here who said that it has changed, maybe I can ask one of the... I have another person there that had put up your hand, and after you. Yeah? Okay.
Yes, my image for the EIT was always that there was some funding available for innovation, but always a little bit vague. It's only for insiders, and how would you be able to acquire it? Because my clients always use public funding for innovation projects, and then it's clear you can do a proposal and you get funding or not. But yeah, now I have a better image about how it's positioned in society, in Europe. What its purpose is, but still a little bit vague on when are you funded?
Who are your clients?
Mostly innovative companies in the maritime sector. In the Netherlands, we are based in the Netherlands, but also a lot of renewable energy companies. So mostly offshore wind and the whole value chain that is serving it. Also asset management, maintenance. Construction, cranes for offshore things. That type of clients. So
maybe you can...
Yeah, I can explain, and maybe Maria can give some concrete examples. Yeah. I think it depends exactly, was a very relevant question by Begonia, who actually you are. What would be your interest in the EIT? So if you're a student who wants to have a top education, then the education programs of the EIT would obviously be the place to go. The over 60 universities, top universities in Europe, which are now participating. And of course, there are different programs in the 8 different kicks. So one has to navigate your way. If it's in the field of maritime, then probably certain kicks like energy or climate kick, maybe those that are relevant in this field. So that's one track for a student. If you're a startup, there are of course calls. Each of the kicks have calls to look for the most innovative startups in their field, which they want to bring in their ecosystem, and then give them whatever support is needed. And I think what's key to understand here, it's not always the money. Actually, it's not so much money that EIT gives directly to startups. It's even limited. It may be other instruments such as the new EIC or others that are giving much bigger amounts. But EIT can help you to find investors, but can also help the startup to give all sorts of other support. So essentially, each startup would make a contract with a KIC and say, look, we need this to get to the next level. Be it clients, be it support, be it training, be it members in our board, can be many, many different things. So that's the logic we put, saying it's not a pre-cooked support you get, money or something else, but we have a dialogue with the startup to see what is needed to bring them to the next level. And of course, if you're an industry player, if you're a research organization, or if you are a big university that has research projects, you may be interested in the call of innovation projects that each of the KICs has and get involved in some consortium to work on a specific product or solution. Sometimes it's a systemic solution more and more, rather than just one technology to be pushed on the market. Hope that helps.
Maybe to add on that and to make it a little bit tangible how the community works. So we have those co-location centers, or we call them innovation hubs. And these are for us the local ecosystems, and we really try to build them across the knowledge triangle, so that we have, like in Barcelona, in the Innovation Hub South, we would have the city of Barcelona, and then we would have the Technical University of Barcelona, UPC, and we would have CERT as an industry player. So we have university, we have a city, and we have an industry partner, and more than those that I just mentioned. But so that really they can work in their local ecosystem, and then those local communities are more or less open. So they're open to new network partners who want to get on board and collaborate. But as Martin said, it's not about the money, because if you compare EIT funding money, it's really peanuts compared to other programs in Horizon 2020. So for a single partner. And this is also some education that we have to do with our partners now, because we're just beginning, and we have some big industry partners in there who are used to big pots of money. And now they have to get used to, okay, this is about the network, it's about the community, it's about access to cities, it's about really doing this co-creation and having the facilitation from EIT to really be able to bring solutions to the city. So it's a different approach, and we're still in the process of educating also our partners on that. So it's not easy.
So, thank you. Okay, but he was a bit. He was first, and then you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. Really nice presentation and information you are giving us. My question is regarding the two new kits that you have in mind for the future. One is the design and cultural industries, and the other one is not already defined. My question is, what do you expect for the kit about the cultural and design industries, and what could be the elements you are waiting for to define the next one? Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe I take the first part, and you can talk about the second part. What would be the ideas for the future? Because that's, of course, to be decided by the Commission, Parliament, and then Council. What is the idea
even
of
this
the?
One as well.
Yeah, but that one is proposed already,
Exactly.
so it's quite concrete. And we have suggested that from the EIT side. So we suggested a number of themes, and that was the one picked up, because the idea behind it is that the field of culture in Europe is obviously a major strength, but also something that is enormously fragmented. It's often looked at in a national context, and there is not enough cooperation at the European level. So already you have a good basis for the EIT model to make a difference, because it's all about pan-European cooperation, and such a network to create innovation in the field of culture, creativity, does currently not exist. So we can provide real added value. At the same time, you have enormously dynamic creative industries, all across the board. Of course, digital area, but if you think of video games, movies, music, many fields, fashion, where Europe has an enormous creativity and where there's already very strong industry. So if you can bring those two and bridge that gap between relative relatively traditional, fragmented culture field, and that very, very dynamic creativity, you can unleash enormous innovation potential, not just in that field of culture creativity, but actually also in many other areas. For example, field of design can make a big difference if you bring it early on into the innovation process in other fields. So from this analysis, which we did, we see this as something extremely complementary to the 8 existing KICs that are already there, and at the same time something where Europe really could have a big strength and can do much better in terms of innovation. So we're really looking forward to hopefully get the okay from the EU institutions for that KIC, and then to launch it already as soon as 2021.
Yeah, that's just to link with this, the idea was to have the first theme put forward as soon as possible so that we would not have big gaps, because that's another important feature of the EIT and the KICs is the regularity of the new KICs being launched. You don't want big gaps in between KICs, because you need to have your ecosystem working, and therefore otherwise you get them isolated. So that was the idea, having the continuity. And of course for the second KIC, that would happen later on in the process, and for that, the idea is to try and get in line with what the strategic programming process will be for all the other partnerships, because the KICs themselves are partnerships, European partnerships, and they will be under this in Horizon Europe. So the idea is to be part of this process. Of course, elements that will have to be complied with, where, as Martin was saying, this complementarity with existing partnerships. That's very important, that there's no overlaps. The fact that a fragmentation is also seen in the area, and also the opportunities that there will be within the selected area. So this will be part of the process later on, and as part of the whole discussion of the other partnerships in Horizon Europe. But there was a certain sense of urgency to already define the theme for the new KIC in order not to have a big gap between the different KICs. A question there? Yeah.
So I thank you for the nice presentation. I just wanted also to help you answering, because I am one of the beneficiaries from one of the KICs. I was able to professionally and personally grow through the climate KIC, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And then afterwards, I decided to completely change my path and do the startup and start my own business, and to benefit again from EIT. And it's not about money, as Maria mentioned. It's more about the connection and what I got through this accelerator, and what I got opportunity to meet all these industrial partners, which later on helped my startup grow and go into a completely different direction than I initially thought it would go. So I think it's also about cross-KIC partnership, that we are all together, and I think Tiago is going to agree with that as alumni, that we are working with each other. We stay in touch, and then afterwards, when we see opportunity for each other, we are then there for each other, either through the contact, network, etc. So I think it's what EIT is doing. I think it's really, really amazing. Keep doing that way. And see you in Connect and Innovate very soon.
I don't know if there are any more comments at this stage. I wanted to go back into this discussion we were having about the education. You had very much pointed at how different it is, the education approach. And as you know, and I mentioned earlier on, in the new program, we are proposing to reinforce that side of education a little bit, just to give you a sense of this, a little bit thinking of this best practice that we have been seeing through the KICs, to try and extend it beyond that and have a more structuring effect to help the higher education institutions become also more modern, more entrepreneurial, and more innovative. So that is the idea behind what we want to plan for the future. Again, that's part of the co-creation and discussion, so this will be a process again. But with all this in mind, I would like to take the opportunity to ask Maria, what is your vision and your plans in terms of education in the urban mobility KIC, especially since you are going to, as you were saying before, it's a matter of educating as well the public. how do you envision this education side from you?
Okay, so we need to go beyond what we consider education. So we have to go beyond the master programs, beyond the PhD programs. We have to go much more into the professional education. So talking with cities, they have a great need for educating their staff, actually, to really see the multimodal challenge, because very often, and if we talk about fragmentation, it's everywhere. So it's also within the public authorities. So they have their departmental borders, and they have to see it as a systemic problem, and they have to be aware of where the elements of the solution are, and it's beyond their departmental silos. So professional education, and also helping the authorities, for instance, to keep up with change. So they have a huge transition challenge ahead of them. So we need to create programs and involve also industry. Industry has some amazing educational programs also, but they are using that only internally for their staff. So let's use the capacity, the educational capacity of all sides of the knowledge triangle and of the ecosystem, and not only the traditional players. So this is one thing. Then on the other hand, of course, children are an amazing source of creativity, and also that's a way to already, create awareness of what sustainability really means and what sustainable behavior is. And we see now how children can actually change the behavior of their parents. So, I mean, this is an amazing effect. So I think, I mean, we really don't need the children. They probably are very easy to educate in terms of, what's the right behavior. But then, they take that to the big mass of grown-ups. So this is going across all ranges, all age ranges, but then also to professional education. That's one side, and the other thing that Thiago already mentioned. So taking what we do in the innovation, going across industry, working with startups, with public authorities. Why don't we do that in education? Why? So I'm a traffic engineer. I studied that 25 years ago, and it's a faculty. It's a civil engineering study, actually. So only engineers there. And then I went into working in transportation. And then there were psychologists, and there were computer science people, and engineers, electrical engineers, what have you. So there was a whole range, but I didn't find them in the studies. So we have to move the reality of what we need for solutions. We have to move that into the education space, into the master programs, do it across the different faculties, and this is what we are trying to do with EIT. I mean, there's a big inertia also in the universities, but we have to push them, and then hopefully they will develop the programs themselves. I mean, we can. It's not our aim to do that for decades, but hopefully trigger a change.
And Thiago, from your experience, and now you're seeing, because you're managing other training courses and so on, are you seeing that are you getting more people than just the ones who are finding out and weeding out that this is a possibility? Because you had a very personal path that you were looking for something very specific, but do you reach out? Do you think that we're reaching out to people who might be thinking that there's a traditional way of learning and not aware of these other new ways of learning? How are you finding difficulties on this, or what kind of people do you get, and what do they need?
Well, I think, like you said, it's since certain approaches are very untraditional. Then you don't know something you've never experienced, right? So sometimes it's quite difficult for you to buy into it. The reality is that I feel like in my generation, and perhaps that participant in the back that was talking about her experience can testify as well. Like we don't feel very comfortable in today's world. A lot of things don't make sense for us. And I don't know if you guys heard today Greta in the UN Climate Summit. She was really angry, and I think a lot of in our generation there's a lot of reasons to be really pissed off because we're confused, we're lost, because a lot of things are being destroyed and it doesn't make any sense. So I think education can be a part of finding our way, and indeed connecting different generations, and connecting our love for technology with our desire to have peaceful and happy lives. And you know, as I'm a big fan of, for example, massive online courses, and I think this is wonderful to disseminate cognitive knowledge, right? But then on the other side, we need to have also education and training on, you know, developing our skills to connect to each other, to communicate within different cultures, for example, to expand our vision and our creativity to understand the bigger challenges, right? Or, for example, if you're an entrepreneur, to have the possibility to connect with other entrepreneurs or with people who have a lot of experience and are now leading big organizations, to have these conversations of, okay, I have no idea what actually I'm doing. What is your experience? How can we, you know, find what's really needed? And this is also some sort of education. So we need to have, you know, all these different styles of it: the digital, the personal, the technical, the social, and so on.
Thank you. I was just going to open again the floor for the audience. I might want to know from those of you who have not been surprised by what you've heard today, like other colleagues who found out about new things. Do you have any specific ideas of things that need to be changed? Because you probably knew about the EIT, you knew how it worked, but do you see any issues that could be improved, that should change, that are not being tackled? Are there any specific ideas in the audience on this? Yes, we have one question.
That's a good point, which I was thinking in the last few minutes. All the areas of sciences that you have mentioned the past hour, they really have been supported the last, not only 20, but probably the last 40 years by the Commission. They're not new fields. They are traditional fields that have been worked upon again and again. The point that I want to make is that European science has been accused in the past, as compared to the Americans in the US, that there's no continuation, there's no follow-up, there is no good coordination between the different support programs from one to the other. There is a multi-million euro project that goes on, it finishes, and then that's it. There's no additional follow-up in order to glue together what has been happened in the past and what will be happening in the future. Perhaps the new creation of these missions, the 5 missions that are being newly developed, might provide this cohesive glue that we really need, which is prevalent, you know, among scientists in the world, that Europe needs to a little bit better coordinate its support. It is there, but it needs to support it in some way that will be able to re-up the benefits of the research that's being done in a better way.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very good comment. I don't know, maybe you want to
Yeah, I can have a go at it.
Exactly.
I mean, your first 2 points about the areas which are being covered, I would say, well, these are the top priority challenges areas in Europe. They may be repetitive, but these are the mega problems, and there are not so many of them. So climate change, sustainable energy, human health. I mean, these are obvious topics where there is a lot of need for innovation, and while you make progress, I mean, the challenge remain very, very relevant. So that may be an explanation why it seems these are traditional areas, but we believe these are the key ones. Secondly, about the long-term nature, that's exactly the purpose behind the EIT. That's one of the unique feature, that it's not individual projects. We discussed this about the startups, but it's also true about the portfolio as a whole. So the KIC has a 7 and then 15-year strategy to solve their challenge, where they set certain focus areas and bundle their partners, their activities to make a progress there. And so that's a portfolio of different activities which are interlinked. It is not one-off projects. And I think that really sets the EIT apart. And yes, that's also the base idea behind the missions in my understanding. That's why EIT sees itself as very well placed to contribute to those missions, because most likely they fall into these mega challenges that we discussed. And we already see this with a selection of mission boards, which are in the same fields where the EIT is active. And then, of course, there can be a contribution on already a ready-made ecosystem and community that can help to that. So that for me would be hopefully giving you some answers there.
So maybe just a comment. So I fully agree with the need for the glue. Having come on board for the EIT Urban Mobility, of course I looked also at what are other networks in this area, and there's a lot happening and many initiatives. And I mean, only trying to connect to them and try to identify, how to collaborate, what are the synergies to be used. I mean, it's a massive effort. So, yes, I think more should be and must be done in this direction. And the EIT, I mean, focusing our projects on TRL levels 5 and above actually already addresses, yes, there has to be a follow-up. I mean, the research is often done somewhere else in other programs, and then we take different solutions and glue them together into a pilot, or something that's really being tested in a city. So we provide the test beds, and we provide the funding for things that have been developed elsewhere to actually become a reality in the city.
Thank you. I'm being told that our time is over, so I was going to ask you for some last-minute last impressions, but maybe I think I will have to give it, unless you have something pending that you want to say. Basically, I would like to thank very much the panel and also the audience. I think we have some good takeaways about probably we have helped some of you to understand in a much broader light what the EIT is about and what it's aiming at doing, and how it's succeeding to do it, but also where the challenges are lying. I think we had very good points in terms of what's the next steps, how important it is to make proper links with all the other areas which are linked to the existing KICs. I think it's important that the KICs themselves, the EIT, what it represents is this ecosystem of ecosystems, and it actually makes sure that there's a good continuity amongst the different themes and good overlap and not overlap, but good collaboration, and that when we're talking about education, we're not just talking about it in sensu stricto, but we're talking about something that goes beyond that. Even in education side, it's being innovative and creative, because innovation, as has been said by the panel and by several of you, is not just about startups. It's about going beyond that. It's about creating an innovation atmosphere that allows future innovators and future developments to grow in a different way. So with all this, I would like to thank you very much, and thank you all. And I think that you have another session starting soon. So thank you very much for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Begonia.